block of Wynnefield, along with extensive and excessive water main damage in the 5400 block, 5600 block, and 5700 block of Wynnefield. Several residents had to have new water lines put in. As a result of the weight coming up and down, of the buses coming up and down Wynnefield Avenue, St. Joseph University also has a delivery depot in the 5700 block of Wynnefield Avenue. So every day, you have trucks coming up there with deliveries for the college, and also trash trucks coming up there in the mornings. The figures that we got from SEPTA, and we calculated it out on a yearly basis. It's a minimum of 51,000 buses coming up a residential street. A minimum of 51,000 yearly, and as many as 63,000 if they have to reroute some other buses. We've had gas leaks, which we believe is a result of the excessive tonnage on Wynnefield Avenue. By the way, which is which is over a water bed. Everybody can tell you that Mill Creek comes down and runs underneath there. There was a house being renovated at 57th and Wynnefield, and the house is owned by a plumber. He rents it out to students. He's an investor also. He went in there 3 times. And finally told me, he said, "John, there's water down here." And Lord and behold, about 6 months later, we had that major sinkhole in the 5700 block. We proposed to SEPTA, and they're using this, they say, as a turnaround. We proposed to SEPTA to have a 52 bus come up to 54th and City Line Avenue, which would give everyone, including this person that spoke before me, full service to 54th and City Line, so the seniors and other people don't have to get off and walk back or walk up a block to get to the library or the senior center or the community center. The 52 bus went up to 54th Street as it used to do, and made a left and proceeded to Drexel Road, then turned into Overbrook train station for the 52 bus turnaround. The station is already using, SEPTA is already using that turnaround for the G bus. And we calculated it would add approximately 1 additional city block, or maybe just a little longer, to the distance that they're presently using. Because when we went to court, they said, well, we're doing this because of the money. It saves us money. Well, you can turn around they can turn around on their own property and not cause anybody harm and take our children out of danger. Now, I was told by the supervisor, the bus can't make a sharp right, which is ridiculous. The G bus makes a sharp left and a sharp right, and there can't be a sharper right if you went to 54th and City Line and the bus turning off City Line back on the 54th to come south. That's a sharp right. As a matter of fact, all traffic has to stop at least 2.5 parking spaces behind City Line Avenue so the bus can turn. So these are adaptations that can be made by the SEPTA, but they're willing to make no sacrifice at all. And if there's a question of space, there's plenty of parking space on the east side of Overbrook train station. If they took out 15 to 20 parking spaces, guess what? They could put 5 buses in there. We go up there at night and look at it when there's no cars parked there. But we're asking SEPTA to be responsible to the taxpayers, to the community. We want our children safe first of all. And we want to protect our community, our property, and our health. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Herbert.
Okay, before I go into some of the details and the history here, I just do want to specifically address Ms. Levitt's issue with Overbrook Avenue and the fact that passengers are being told to get off the bus at 54th and City and not being permitted to ride around. That will be corrected. There's no reason why passengers cannot ride around the corner to the layover point, which would get you much closer to Overbrook Avenue. So we will address that, and we'll make sure that there is compliance for that. This has been an ongoing issue since 2003, searching for alternatives. We ran an alternative all the way down to Conshohocken and Belmont Avenues for many years at an expense of almost $975,000 in additional operating expenses to SEPTA. There was no transportation reason for going down there. There's duplicative service, and we needed to come up with an alternative that was more cost effective and as close to the 54th and City Avenue layover location that we had traditionally used as we possibly could. Wynnefield Avenue, Cardinal Avenue is the most cost effective and the simplest routing to be as close as possible to what we used to do at 54th and City Avenue. We explored a lot of alternatives over the years, including Overbrook Station. Overbrook Station was looked at. It is, again, a good distance. It's about $870,000 in additional operating expenses to go down there. But more importantly, at Overbrook Station, even if parking spaces were removed, the issue with the parking spaces is not the major issue. It's congestion getting in and out of the parking lot on the 63rd Street. Very narrow street, a lot of congestion at that location. The other side of the parking lot where Route G operates, there's absolutely no room for any additional buses over there. We now have to actually back up the buses that are there. Again, however, this would be an alternative that is serves no transportation purpose in that there's all kinds of service along City Avenue. Before we implemented the Wynnefield Avenue routing, we had a couple of community meetings. We made some promises to the community, one of which was the 15-mile-an-hour speed limit on Wynnefield Avenue. My understanding from operations is there's been 1,300 compliance checks done with the speeding, and roughly a 97% compliance on the speeding. That's really good for a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit. There are stop signs. There's a traffic light at Cardinal Avenue, which also helps with the speed. We've had no instances of safety issues operating on the street. We safely operate in school environments all over the city of Philadelphia. As has been testified to by residents, there are a lot of other traffic on Wynnefield Avenue, commercial vehicles, trucks, buses, St. Joe's, school buses. I can't specifically address the vibrations and the cracking of the houses. All I can tell you is that before we implemented, we asked the City of Philadelphia Office of Air Management to conduct vibration testing at a couple of houses on Wynnefield Avenue. They did so both before and after checks and concluded that there was no effect of the buses on the condition of the street. We also asked the Philadelphia Streets Department for an assessment of the street condition, and the Streets Department also came back and said that the street is suitable for bus operation. It's a street which is wider than a lot of the streets we operate on and is suitable for bus operation from a physical standpoint. So we tried to do all that. We also made a commitment not to make any stops on Wynnefield Avenue. That's a noise issue potentially from having operators with the operator announcements for stops that are automated on Wynnefield Avenue. We don't do that. We don't stop there. So we also have committed to working with the City of Philadelphia to make traffic light improvements for the left turn onto Wynnefield and Woodbine Avenues from 54th Street. So all of these things were discussed, and this was our position at the public hearings. The hearing examiner heard all of the testimony, and the hearing examiner's recommendation from the public hearings was that this represented the best alternative.
Hey, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
If I'm hearing you correctly, and if I've read the material correctly, and this route change is purely a financial issue?
This was the most reasonable financial solution to turning the buses around.
Reasonable for SEPTA as opposed to the residents.
Reasonable for SEPTA, most cost effective for the taxpayers.
Thank you.
Charlie, where's St. Joe's in all of this?
St. Joe's basically evicted us from the property when they decided to do the development at the issue. Historically, we did not own the loop at 54th and City Avenue. We leased it from St. Joe's. So when they developed the property on both sides of the street, they exercised their option to evict us from the property.
Is there a reasonable alternative on their campus for the turnaround?
The only possibility would be if there were possible changes made to the parking lot that was developed on the west side of the street. And you know, that's a possibility. It's a parking lot which we believe is fully utilized by the students, and there's a lot of pedestrian traffic now crossing over that parking lot, a lot of students going to the stores and the new development on the other side of the street that would have to be taken into consideration. Could buses physically operate through that parking lot if changes were made? Yes, we could.
Excuse me, you're asking us to take into consideration.
Man, can you hold on, man? We do some orderly man.
Our agenda here today, I noticed 3 or 4 times where we were either going to negotiate for land or condemn the land, and we authorized the general manager to do that. We could do that with this situation too. We could negotiate with the college and see where we could negotiate for additional land for the turnaround and or condemn it.
What I was going to suggest is we pull the item off the agenda for today, and I want to look into the vibration issue, and I want to look into exactly what you're saying about St. Joe's. If we can't look at either condemnation or working out a package with St. Joe's to try to alleviate some of this stuff. So we'll pull off today's agenda. Our staff will get in touch with whoever they need to. Let's take a look at these vibration issues, which concern me a little bit on this stuff, and seeing what it is. Even though I know there's FedEx and all plus traffic on that road, but I'd like to hear what part we're contributory to it. The other part is, let's see if we can't find an alternative through St. Joe's, whether it's through condemnation or whether we're working at a deal with them. So let's take it for next month. I'm not making any promises here, but we'll give it a month to go.
Thank you.
Ma'am, go on. Sam?
Testified that it costs $900,000+ to go down Conshohocken and Belmont and come back up to do the old turnaround. The turnaround that we suggested at 63rd Street for Overbrook Station is only a city block and maybe a city block and a half. And it was testified today that that would be an additional $800,000. Here's a map, Rudy. We compared the distance, and I challenge this testimony. It couldn't be another $800,000 to go from 54th and City Line to Overbrook Station if it was $900,000 to go all the way down to Conshohocken and Belmont. That's not making sense. So I don't believe that testimony. But here's a copy of that map. If you didn't get it, please make copies and compare the route, please. Yeah. John Marshall.
Charlie, this is done at a hearing examiner, heard all the testimony from both sides on the routing and on the expense part of this thing?
Yes, he did.
Okay, so I would get that all out, make it available to anybody who wants to see it, and if it's disputed, we'll take a look at it. Okay. Okay, we pulled that off the agenda, so we're going to move on to the consent calendar.